Let me tell you one very simple fact. Thought is instantaneous. If I asked you now to imagine you're in your favourite restaurant surrounded with close friends and family members, you're starving, you're really, really, really hungry. You've just now placed your order for your favourite dish, which may be a filet mignon or maybe some pasta dish. Over time you can start smelling the food from the kitchen and it's making you hungrier and hungrier. Eventually the waiter brings the dish out, places it in front of you, you eagerly grab your knife and fork and dig in to start taking your first bite. Now, you can picture yourself in that restaurant. Didn't take you hours, days, weeks, months to make that thought. It was instant. So knowing that thought was instant, what your client doesn't need from you is the time to think about it. They needed something entirely different from you. So what I've done today is I've compiled the core 5 areas where you need to focus your time on the most so you can actually avoid even hearing I want to think about it. Once I've gone through those and explained what you can do and how you can implement that on your next call, I'll also just go through exactly what you need to say if you hear that objection. So at least if it crops up, you can deal with it then and there. So let's jump into it. So the first core area that I've identified is at the very beginning. Start as you plan to finish. First impressions are crucial. Whether we like it or not, we all make snap judgments. So the way that you introduce yourself, carry yourself, and set the tone will echo throughout the entire call. Maybe, and most likely, you are the first voice and face to truly represent your business and offer in front of this client. So it's just so important how you present yourself, first of all. Now, beyond the initial impressions and the rapport building, the biggest thing is actually setting a frame. Now, for those of you that maybe aren't aware of what a frame is, let's look at it in the real world. You have a frame for buildings, you have like timber frames and steel frames. Well, the point of a framework is to give you a guide and a structure to build upon. So very much like a sales call, there is a structure behind it, and you first of all build the foundation as the rapport, and then you build the framework by setting the frame. It allows for both you and the prospect to be focused on the mission ahead. So rather than you getting lost in conversation here, question here, and not really knowing what's going on, and your customers kind of going left to right as well and not knowing exactly what you should be discussing, this allows you to control precisely what will be discussed and preempt the client to prepare the information for you. So an example of a frame can be really, really simple. After you build rapport, you just set the same. Say, look, the next part of the call, it's going to be about half an hour. We're going to go through the numbers of the business, what you've done, what you haven't done, bottlenecks you're facing, and try to get to the bottom of where the issues are. If I feel confident that we can help you, I'll give you an offer. Like, very, very simple frame. Another frame what I've used for Facebook ads before, very similar, is look, thanks again for hopping on. What I'm going to do today is get as much information as I possibly can about your situation. I want to know what you're spending, margins, conversion rates, and all the good stuff. So then when I go back to the team, we can do a bit more research. And if we're confident that we can help you get to where you want to go, I'm going to put a plan in place. We're going to get on a call in the next couple of days and we can go over the investment and the expectations. Sound good with you? Yes. You can frame it 1,000,001 ways, but really what you want to do is make sure the client near enough knows what you're going to be discussing and talking about. And then you have full control over where you're going to go next and how you can lead the call. So setting the frame and your first impressions, if not done correctly, could already be causing some contemplation and lack of confidence in you and your company when you first speak to a prospect. Next area I've identified is uncovering of the client's true pains, their issues and their visions. So when a prospect books in with you, they're aware of some type of pain and situation they're in. But when they speak to you, very rarely will you come across somebody that's an open book and tells you in depth exactly their problems they're facing and why they need you to help them. They'll normally keep it surface level. So an example of a surface level pain, let's look at the health and fitness sector and let's look at a fitness coach. They may get a prospect that says, hey, I want to lose some weight. And the fitness coach may go, yeah, awesome, yeah, I can help you lose weight. And they have a bit more of a discussion, and eventually the guy or woman presents the price, and the lead goes, I need to think about it. Now, what should have been done, and this is where actually the skill of sales comes in, is learning how to question some more, and then how to pose scenarios and other alternative realities to these people to get them to see the actual reality of their pain and their problems. If we look at the example of, I want to lose some weight, you can just simply ask a very simple question. Why do you want to lose weight? Wait for a response. Because I want to feel better. Well, why don't you feel better at the moment? And then you can explain further and keep questioning to the point where the guy or girl might open up and go, well, actually, look, I need to lose weight because I'm going on holiday in 8 months from now to a beach resort. I've always wanted to take my top off. I don't want to be hiding in the shadows anymore with my top on. I want to be out there and embrace it and have fun with my family. It's so important to me because of this, because of that, and I'm fed up and I need to make a change. That's now a deep pain point that you can really build some value behind. Another example of uncovering true pains and issues was actually what I learned working with a client a few years ago who was a large insurance brokerage. So they wanted to build out a much larger national sales team. Eventually came down to a philosophy they wanted to apply and just really instill within the sales team moving forward. And it's really, really simple. When the problem outweighs the premium no longer becomes a problem. And when I first heard that, I thought it was absolutely brilliant because it's so true. When the problem outweighs the premium, the price is no longer a problem. And as I analysed their sales performance, you had this huge divide of people. You had advisors to one side that was selling insurance policies for 50, 100, 150 plus pounds per month. And on the other side, you had other advisors selling life insurance policies for 10, 20 pounds per month. Now, both of the clients from the respected advisors both thought they had a very fair value for money kind of offer, and they were happy with what they had. Because when a client is aware of a pain, they're not always necessarily aware of the true pain and the true reality behind it. The guys and girls that sold the £150 a month life insurance policies, they weren't speaking to more wealthier individuals than the other advisors, but they made the problem become so big that the premium was not a problem. And how they done that was through, again, in-depth questioning behind the true realities of what these prospects could face, the what ifs, the what thens, the hows, and everything else in between. And it really allowed the prospect to open up and see far beyond a basic insurance policy. They saw that if this happened, this would happen, and if that happened, that would happen, which meant this and meant that, and they didn't want that to happen. So they pay the price. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, you have a moral and ethical obligation to pose the in-depth and sometimes awkward questioning and uncomfortable questioning. Because if you don't ask the questions that are really going to get to the crux of the issue and the reality that your clients could face, in the sense of insurance, the advisors that didn't ask the in-depth questions and didn't want to feel uncomfortable sold the small policies that, if some of the worst case scenarios happened, would actually screw those families and people over. Where the ones that sold the big policies worth all the money posed the uncomfortable questions and just got on with it anyway. And the client valued them more because they felt at peace with their investment of the insurance they bought and felt protected. You have to make sure that you don't put your biases in front of you and decide not to ask uncomfortable questions. You're trying to help your client, and if you're in sales or in business to help people, then it's your obligation to just ask the deeper questions, and you'll get a far better response than you could even realize. It will allow you to charge more and ultimately just give more value to your clients. Uncovering of pain and issues and their goals. learn to question, and learn to listen more on your calls. When they give you kind of little snippets where you could build more value behind, go into them. Don't brush over. So the next section is your offer. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the concept of paint by numbers, but it's really simple. You've got like a blank piece of paper that has an outline. Inside the outline, there's different sections of numbers. You have paint as well. The number is associated to a paint. So number 1 could be blue, number 2 could be orange, number 3 could be black. And quite simply, you look at the numbers, you look at the paint, you fill it in. You get what I'm saying. Going in with that idea, one of the biggest issues where I think can arise, especially for new and technical salespeople, is just overcomplicating the offer, going too technical, explaining too much, going in with too much jargon, and overwhelming the client. So you may give what you believe again to be an amazing explanation of your offer, and the client sits there. Yeah, sounds good. Yep. And you get to the end, and they may feel they now can't ask you another question because they don't want to feel like they weren't listening, and they don't want to feel like they're stupid. Even at your explanation of your offer, how you connect your offer and explain it to match their pain, their issues, and their visions is such a huge area of focus. Just because you're the expert and you know all this information in your head, it doesn't mean the client does. In fact, the client knows nothing. So sometimes because you've got all this wealth of knowledge, you may explain it in a way that only you understand now because of the experiences you've gone through being in the industry for how long you have been. Where when you first started, it would have overwhelmed you as well. A simple rule of thumb when it comes to explaining your offer is always align it purely with the issues, pains, and visions of your client. Don't go into no man's land of just spitting out feature, benefit that doesn't actually align with why they're on the call with you. Keep it short and simple, or make it long and lethal. Section 4 is affordability. A bit like when the customer doesn't want to admit they weren't maybe listening or taking on board what you said and looked stupid. It also comes down to price as well. Some of your clients may genuinely be in a position where they are broke and they cannot afford it, which is a viable reason to not move forward and have to think about it. But that really should be focused upon in your pre-qualification versus on your call. Some people will slip through the gaps invariably, but tightening up your pre-qualification, pre-call booking, or whatever you do to generate your appointments should be focused upon to get people in a conditioned mindset of, I can consider this investment, but I'm not telling you I'm going to invest. And that's all you need. As an example, when I've closed $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month Facebook packages in the past, these people would book in on a form where it would say, our prices start from $3,000 per month. If we can show you a game plan that's suited to your needs, would you be able to invest in your business? And if they either said yes or maybe, that is a qualified lead. If they say no and they're broke, well, we wouldn't book them in. Another example of this, and certain industries will change. So let's take car dealerships as an example. I was a bit cheeky when I was younger. When I was like 17 or 18, I learned about the law of attraction, and I used it to my full capacity. And there was loads of new cars that I wanted. There was a nice BMW convertible that was nearby at a local dealership, so I went, screw it. Let's get a nice shirt on, let's act like I'm doing well, and go in with confidence and sit in the car, get a test drive. I did exactly that. Got a test drive, went down the road with the sales guy, giving it all large, and he then brings me back to the office. We start talking finance figures, deposits, monthly payments, and in my head I'm like, oh dear, I'm broke. I'm not earning anything right now to pay for this. He gives me the offer, basically asks for me to buy it, and I say, I need to think about it. I didn't want to admit to him I was broke and I wasted his time just for a dream of mine. So going back to the pre-qualification stage, You need to make sure that you're not getting dreamers and people with the wrong expectations coming on your calls in the first place. Again, car dealerships and things like that, you're not in a position to judge and to kind of, push people away. When people do slip through the gaps, this is now again where it comes down to you with how you set the tone, how you ask the questions, and how you listen. You can start understanding when somebody isn't in the right position for you, and you can focus more heavily on that. If you can start sensing somebody is generally broke or in a position where your offer is not going to be suitable for them right now, get straight to the point. You value their time and you value yours. Get straight to the point and bring it up. Look, you're only making $2,000 a month. Our services start from $3,000 a month. I appreciate it's about investing into professional expertise and help, but if you're struggling to scale now and put money into ads, how are you going to invest into a service like ours? And see what they say. You can have some just real conversations with people. Affordability really needs to be focused on your qualification process, and if not, your questioning and how long you keep on the call. If you know somebody's broke, don't give them an hour of your time. I've done this way too many times in the past. Don't spend your time speaking to broke people. Give them some valuable insight and knowledge that they can use, and keep in touch with them on email and let them reach out to you over time and see if you can help nurture that relationship. But be focused on people that are willing to consider your service right now. Now, the final section is perceived value. Now, perceived value, it's all going back to what we spoke about earlier. When the problem outweighs the premium no longer becomes a problem. You've also identified their pains, their goals, their issues, and all their visions. You've set the right tone. They can consider your investment. So the only thing stopping it is then this value perception. And that really should be more or less covered if you've done all the previous steps properly before. If it comes to the point where people are not seeing value for money within your offer, well, that's a huge red flag. Then they're always going to want to think about it because the price just doesn't work in accordance with the perceived value. An example of this was actually when I was a teenager. I got into football and I wanted to have some of the best football boots that I could possibly have, because why not? I always remember there was this one pair, was these Adidas Predators. And I looked at loads of other football boots. These were one of the most expensive pairs at the time. And I always remember they had underneath the boot, they had this see-through section where you could see these metal filings. And the metal filings looked cool. But at the time I didn't actually understand what they were for besides a cool looking feature and a talking point. So my value or perceived value of these boots were they're really, really good, but compared to the other ones that I'm looking at as well, they all seem to be the same. But this one's a bit more expensive. So I don't really feel comfortable in buying these ones. And that was because I didn't connect all the features and benefits to my current circumstance. I think one of the workers explained to me, whether this is true or not, I don't know. But actually, these metal filings, which would move in accordance with momentum, so if you're kicking the ball, the metal filings would shoot forward in the boot as well, giving you that extra additional power and sort of, just ferociousness behind the kick. Look, again, whether that was true is another thing, but to me, I connected the value there, and I was like, okay, now I get it. That's worth more, and I want that feature, so I'm going to buy it. And maybe you're just 1 or 2 steps away from figuring out how to connect the features or the benefits to your client's needs and wants and explain it in a way that makes sense to them. That explanation I had from the guy at the store connected perfectly with me. Think about all the features, all the benefits of your product and service. And actually, as an exercise, I would list out all the main reasons people would want to buy and need your service or product. So you've got that in your arsenal ready to bring out if and when it's needed. Recap over those 5 core areas again. Area 1 is how you're setting the tone and framing the call. Section 2 is how you're uncovering pains, issues, and visions. Section 3 is how you're possibly overcomplicating your offer and confusing your client and not connecting the dots properly. Section 4 is your qualification process and speaking to people that are able to consider your offer. And 5 is perceived value, how you've built it all together to make a compelling offer, to match it with the pains and issues and goals and explain it in a way that all looks completely right for them to move forward. Now, let's get to what you can actually say if your client does say, I want to think about it. And also what not to say. Words I don't want you to say anymore is, great, take your time and get back to me when it's good for you. Rip it up, throw it out, don't say that anymore. Another thing is, awesome, take your time, speak to you soon, bye-bye. Forget that as well. You need to now be decisive and very direct with what you're going to say now. But this doesn't mean you have to become this like hardcore closing machine. You need to understand how you can help them. And you can't do that by leaving the call and contemplating why they need to think about it. So, really simple question, straight to the point. What is it specifically you want to think about, Mr. Customer? Sit back and wait for them to tell you. Now, they're either going to tell you one or two things typically. They're going to tell you the straight reason. Well, to be honest, Ryan, I just don't know if I can afford it. Then, of course, you can lead into questioning such as, how do you mean? Well, it's a lot of money and bum, 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 bum. They'll explain themselves, you can question, readdress everything, and then go for the close. So another thing the customers might say is, there's nothing particular, I just want to think about it. So they now don't give you a specific reason. Well, what do you do now? Do you say, okay, fair enough, speak soon, bye-bye? No, what you need to do now is say, look, that's absolutely fine, take as much time as you need. But just curious then, if we were to look at a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you know what, this is not for my company, and 10 being, that's ready to roll, I'm ready to roll, let's go, where would you be right now? If they tell you anything that's not a 10, ask them why and what would you have to do to get you to a 10. If they tell you a 10, well then get their checkbook out and get them to pay you. When they give you an answer on a number, they might say 6. Just say, what would it take you to get to a 10? And then they go, well, this isn't clear, this doesn't make sense, I'm not feeling comfortable here. Either way, they'll give you some openings where you can ask more questions. After those sort of general responses, you don't get anything like that. And they just kind of still closed off, not really wanting to answer anything and clearly just not willing to engage. Learn sometimes when to just end. Sales is not about trying to just cold-heartedly convince people into buying something. You may have just turned these customers off so much during your presentation that whatever you say, whatever rebuttal you give, they're not going to buy. So just politely thank them for their time. Always offer to keep in touch and just move on. Simple as that. Some people may say, no, ask this, do this more. It comes down to what you're selling. So look, if you're selling a product, so like when I used to sell solar systems, it was a one-call close. We'd go in, present, get an offer, or we'd never see the lead again. In those positions, you could be a bit more direct and forceful with your line of questioning. On the other hand, selling Facebook ad services, well, you're not just selling a service, you are selling a relationship and an investment into your business and your operation. So if you create too much pressure and too much force, they're also going to be like really put off by just working with you in general. The mission, around trying to overcome this objection, if you've caused it, isn't just to just try and close them and get their money. It's just to see what's going on and also give you feedback to where you're, stumbling on your calls. But either way, go through that process and just ask them, what specifically do you want to think about? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm not ready and it's not a good thing, and 10 being let's roll, where are you? How could we get you there? Why do you think that? Whatever the case is, if it still comes to a point where the client wants to think about it, set a next point of action. As a foolproof plan, set a next call of action. If they still are adamant they want to think about it, book them in 2 days from now at a set time. And if they're not willing to give you a time then and there, that can also start telling you that you didn't do a good enough job to build up the value and the urgency. But book them in And never leave a call just with an open-ended sort of, yeah, we'll speak soon. What does that mean? But overall, the biggest thing I want you to all take away is you will never now leave a sales call not doing enough. You now won't walk away from these easy openings where you normally just walked away and thought you couldn't do any more. You can now question and find out, but beyond that you can prevent it and get to the end where people are willing to buy then and there, and you can bring new business in. So I wish you the best of luck. If you got any value at all from today, drop a like, subscribe as well, and speak to you soon.